Okay, the Lancet medical journal today had a commentary about how um, neuroscience and psychiatry should be integrated and how it's a great thing. And there's all these other science articles making the same claim that we can integrate neuroscience and psychiatry. But Artie Lang, he was someone willing to debate William Sargent, who was a psychiatrist who focused on neuroscience. Like he tried to reduce psychiatry to Pavlovian physiology, psychophysiology, and R.D. Laing was very, focused on debunking this attempt to reduce the brain to basically like biophysics as mechanics. And so um, if we have a whole Western science based on the wrong physics, then we can see how that creates the wrong foundation for all the other so-called natural sciences, including neuroscience. And so this structural problem of physics is a deep um, bias or structural assumption based on symmetry. So it's built into the language of science as mathematics, assuming a symmetric space-time. And it goes back to the origins of Western science from music theory, the origins of Western mathematics from the wrong music theory, something I've detailed in my academic paper that was published in a peer-reviewed journal. And so um, you end up having this huge disconnect and denial about how science is collaborating with big corporations, whether it's big pharma in psychiatry and neuroscience, or the U.S. Geological Survey collaborating with the coal industry and methane. So the mainstream science is actually this corporate junk science. And so, for example, with the U.S. Geological Survey, they're not just ignoring, but they're trying to dismiss the research of Natalia Shakova's methane research on the pressurized methane in the world's largest ocean shelf in the East Siberian Arctic shelf. So you have 1,200 gigatons of pressurized methane, and you have tolics that are the seismic shafts that are pre-melted, and you have the rapidly warming up Arctic Ocean. And so there's a pre-triggered 50 gigaton abrupt eruption that could happen anytime, and especially with the super El Nino going on right now, we have record high temperatures in the Arctic Ocean. So it's a recipe for global disaster because as Peter Wadhams of Cambridge published in Nature, that if that 50 gigaton abrupt eruption occurs, it'll heat up Earth zero point 0.6 Celsius global average in a matter of months. And then we also have the aerosol masking effect being much worse than mainstream corporate science is acknowledging. So if we reduce burning coal by 40%, it actually heats up Earth another 1 degree Celsius global average. And so you have like mainstream science having this structural problem of the wrong mathematics that then locks them into this exponential growth model of reality that like some economists have exposed. Like economics tries to consider itself a natural science based on physics, but it's using the steam engine as its model. for the supply and demand model, and um, you ignore all these nonlinear feedbacks of nature, the so-called trigger points that, for example, like the Cargill, building illegal soybean elevators and export terminals in the Amazon rainforest, and then buying all the soybeans that farmers can grow by converting the rainforest into soybean farms with Monsanto. And everybody's like, "Oh, great, we're feeding the world. It's a good thing." But the problem is that the equatorial rainforest is like, I don't know, 20% of the world's fresh water and oxygen. And of course, you increase the CO2 emissions when you convert the rainforest to like savanna, and then you increase the wildfires, and you lose the rain, so the trees dry out. And yeah, so maybe you can increase the soybeans as hog feed and chicken feed in Europe and China. But basically, you're just making like huge profits for the billionaires, because there's 14 billionaires that own Cargill. And then they take over the regulatory agencies, so like the EPA and the FDA, the USDA. They're all controlled by Cargill and Monsanto, and then Monsanto. You basically get this big corporate control of science, and that's what happened with like Nazi Germany, where you had IG Farben and US Steel were collaborating. So you had the US corporate elite supporting the Nazis, as did the British elite. And basically, corporations are fascist structures, so it shouldn't be surprising that it keeps continuing to be a problem. So then um, you have this problem of psychiatry being used as a tool of mind control. Psychological warfare was the top level of the CIA, and they used psychiatry for um, mind control and for disinformation, propaganda. And so then when you try to combine psychiatry with neuroscience, you're basically weaponizing psychiatry as a deeper level of mind control, where AI and microchips and all that are, implants. And I mean, even cell phones, if the science is assumed to be classical physics, then you're ignoring the quantum frequency of the microwaves that resonate with the brain. And that's how the brain is the water, and the brain is heated up and cooks the brain. And so everybody's relying on cell phones, um, and they're typing with one finger and getting their algorithms. And meanwhile, their brain's like physically being cooked, and it's increasing brain cancer. And this is all ignored by neuroscience, because they ignore the quantum biology. Um, so you're having like the brain of the planet is like the rainforest, and that's being converted into soybeans. And then you have like our actual brains being converted into silicon with microchips and implants and microwaves, Wi-Fi signals, and all that. And um, yeah, so they're already doing biometric scans as now mainstream science, and flock cameras, and everybody's under surveillance. And then they have the social credit program in China. So if you like jaywalk, you get it gets all recorded into some big computer system. Um, Everybody's being tracked by their cell phones. So if you try to go anywhere, they can just like call in a welfare check and have the cops come and raid you. And if it's welfare, they can get away with pretty much anything. I think there was recently some rulings where they're supposed to still, protect your rights, but like if it's now, you can just be labeled a terrorist. And so anyway.